For a fun and informative podcast all about training working dogs, look no further than the LWDG Pod Dog. This weekly show is hosted by me, Joanne Perrott, founder of the Ladies Working Dog Group, and I chat to experienced trainers and experts in the field who will give you helpful tips and advice. Whether you're just getting started or you've been working dogs for years, this podcast will have something for you. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to LWDG Pod Dog, and let us help you build a better bond with your best friend. Hello and welcome to another episode of LWDG Pod Dog. As a country, we rely on service animals to help us in many different ways. They are an integral part of our lives and we owe them a great debt for their years of service. Once these animals retire, it is our responsibility to make sure they receive the best possible medical treatment and care. And that's why I'm so grateful for organisations like the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals. They help provide service animals with the care they need and deserve. Today we are speaking with Countess Bathurst, Chair of the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals, and with LWDG Society member, but also Management Committee member and Show and Events Coordinator, Tracey Wysocka, about the retired service animals and why they deserve the best medical treatment. So, hello ladies, how are you today?
We're really well. Thank you so much for inviting us on.
Hi, Joe.
So if we start with, if I speak first about what inspired you to start the National Foundation for Retired Service Animals?
Well, Joe, I've always been a dog and animal lover. And 6 years ago, I was very privileged to be High Sheriff for Gloucestershire. And that was the year where the High Sheriff, just for your listeners who are abroad, it's a position which is a year in office. You're asked to do it, and you are, as I was then, the Queen's representative for all things judicial within the county. So it's not something you get voted into, it's something you get asked to do, and it's a huge honour to be able to do it because you get access to all kinds of things. But I very much concentrated on the work that the police do because I feel that they are considerably under review, as it were, by the general public on a daily basis, and they're very easily attacked because they can't answer back. And so I was really interested in getting to know what they did and getting to know their jobs and supporting them and letting them know that they were really appreciated. But in that time, obviously, being a dog lover, I was straight into the dog section. And it was then that I found out that when police dogs retire, they don't get a pension. And so during their careers, everything is paid for. So food, kenneling, toys even, because they use toys for training. It's all positive reinforcement, which I know will be really important to your ladies. And food, yes, veterinary bills, medicine, everything is paid for. The day that they retire, that stops. So in the morning, PD Rocco will go in for his last day at work, and he's a police dog. So does all his police dog work throughout that shift. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the day that he finishes work, he goes home as Rocco the pet. And what happens is that the handler, if they want to keep their dogs, and my goodness, they do want to keep them, because imagine eating, sleeping, living. I mean, they'll see more of their dog than they will their other half. For 8 or 9 years, you've been through thick and thin together. It's probably saved your life on more than one occasion. And all of a sudden, you're faced at the end of that career with a decision: do I keep my dog or do I hand it on to a new home? Well, if I was a police dog handler, I know in which camp I would be, because not only do I love that dog, but it's also grown up for my kids. So when PD Rocco may have been at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, could have been chasing a suspected burglar down the street, by 7:30, he's home with the kids curled up on the sofa watching Coronation Street. So they're very much a member of the family when they're off duty. So to have to make that decision to part with your dog is heartbreaking. But sometimes that has to happen because, and this is why, when police dogs retire and become civilians and they become pets, it's pretty much impossible to get insurance for them. We all insure our dogs. My 5 dogs, they all have insurance. I'm sure all your ladies have their dogs insured. Retired service dogs are uninsurable, not only because of their age, but also because of the work that they've done. No insurance company really wants to touch a dog that's trained to bite people. It's just, they just don't want to take the risk. And so they're faced with a decision. Do I keep my dog, my family member, my partner, my pal, my protector, and possibly face some quite high vet bills as the dog gets older? We all know what happens when dogs get older. Or am I forced to rehome it? I've got 3 kids. I've got a mortgage. We all know that vet bills can get pretty sparky. They have to make that decision as to whether they're going to take that risk. What we do is to say, you don't even have to think about making that decision. Keep your pal, keep your partner, keep your kid's best friend. When the vet bills come in, that's where we can help.
When I heard about the work you do, the first thing I thought about was many years ago when my dad was still alive, we bred a litter, and one of those is currently serving in the police force in London.
Oh, fun.
And as soon as you told me about it, Tracey, I literally texted the gentleman and I was like, if at any point you don't want her anymore or you can't take on her care, please let me know. I will help you. Because it's not just the people who love them, the people who bred them, the people who've been anywhere involved in that dog or that horse's life. We feel connected to them, don't we? We feel a need to look after them until the very end. When I heard of what you did, I just thought of all the people's lives these dogs or horses have impacted. I thought, how do we not know there's this gap in provision for them?
The reason that people don't realise is because they naturally assume that constabularies are going to carry on looking after a dog once it's retired. Now, at this point, I should say, some constabularies are very supportive. And like in Gloucestershire, and I'm incredibly proud of Gloucestershire because they signed up to the Service Animal Welfare Act, which basically means that they will, to the best of their ability, carry on looking after their retired service animals. Now, how they support them is that they pay for their annual inoculations, which is, you know, a huge help, and that's wonderful. And also police forces, if a dog is retired because of an underlying medical condition, that it's been paid for before it's retired. So it's needed medicines before it retired, and then it retired because of it. Most forces, not all, but most forces will continue paying for that treatment for the rest of the dog's life. However, there is this massive gap where police dogs retire because of age and they don't get help. Now, I must mention that there are 17 at the moment retired police dog charities in the country where they all help their local counties. 17 local retired police dog charities. They cover 28 of the constabularies, but there are 43 constabularies. So I'm sure anybody can do the maths. There's still a big gap there, but there is absolutely nothing for prison, nothing for fire, except for a couple of the local police dog charities who support their fire dogs, and nothing for border force. So we still have a huge sector that we have to help. And there's a lot of police dogs out there. I did a sort of a back of fag packet calculation. And I think that there's probably about between 700 to 800 uncovered retired police dogs out there, 900 prison dogs, 45 border force, and probably about 20, because the fire service sector is very small because they travel all over the country where they're needed. So, you know, there are still a lot of dogs out there that we're looking after. And of course, there's nothing at all for retired police horses. So we help them too, but also with retired police horses. Most retired police horses, if they've done over 4 years service, they go to the Horses Trust, which is wonderful if they have room. If they've done less than 4 years service, they tend to go into private hands. And those are the ones that we would help. And we help with, you know, medical conditions. Obviously, we're not going to help if they cut their knee out in the field because, you know, I'm sure that their owners can take care of that. But if there are serious medical problems inside the body, that's where we will step in.
Listening to what is already available, but what is also lacking, is it the main role of your organisation now to sort of fill the gaps where there isn't provision and then support the provision where it does exist?
Exactly, because we are huge fans of the local retired police dog charities. So say, take for instance, Pension for Paws, which cover Hampshire, Isle of Wight, and that area around there. They are an amazing charity. They do a lot of wonderful work, but it is just police dogs. They also cover fire dogs in Hampshire. Sorry, I'll get my wrist snap for that. But there's the Isle of Wight prison, for instance, and other prison facilities. They don't help them in that area. So that's where we help. But we also, I really do believe that it's important to work together in this sector and not to have a territorial attitude. We're a national charity, and that's great, but we'll always support our friends. And I think that's very important to do that. It's not a sort of holding our cards to our chest and not wanting to talk to anybody. We're very open, and if they ever needed our help or support, we would do all we could to make that happen.
And that's fantastic to hear, because we very much believe within the LWDG about collaboration, not competition. It's one of our sort of ethoses, and it's nice to hear that sort of being demonstrated by your national charity, because like you said, when people have been, or charities have been set up for quite a while, maybe locally, there can be this sort of feeling of, well, we're already doing that. So you're here to just say, look, we're just here to back you up if you need it, and places where there isn't anything, we can really help.
Yes, well, I've already signed, but somebody rang up and said, I'd like to make a donation. And I asked where she was from, and she had a local retired police dog charity. And I said, look, if you want to send us the donation for all the service dogs, that's fine. But please be aware you have a local retired police dog charity that help your local retired police dogs. And she said, I'll tell you what, I want to help prison dogs too, so I'll send half and half. And so she sent some to us, and she sent some to them, which I thought was a really important thing to do. We talk with the Association of Retired Police Dogs all the time and just stay in touch. And I just think it's incredibly important, because better together, you're much stronger together. You can achieve so much more together, and also have swap ideas. And while we're doing this, and I don't think, Tracey, it's really important.
Yeah, and actually, Jo, you made a really good point. Actually, it's something I hadn't thought about until you mentioned it, and I'd forgotten that one of your dad's litters, one of their puppies, was now serving with the Met, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
When we were at Thames Valley Police for the day, we were fortunate to be introduced to some puppy walkers. So these are people who, when there's a litter of puppies born, at the end at 8 weeks, they go to volunteers who are called puppy walkers, and they stay with them for about a year. And their job, a bit like the guide dogs, their job is to socialise them, get them used to going to lots of different places, all the stuff that we do with our own dogs. And then the dogs go through assessments, and if at the end of all those assessments they pass, they're then taken on with the local force. But this lady Dawn that we met,
she's lovely.
She's on her 6th dog as a puppy walker volunteer. And we were watching a display by one of her previous dogs. He's now 2.5 years old, and she was absolutely overwhelmed to see him. And he definitely still knew who her and her husband were, because before he did his incredible, impressive display, he was having cuddles with her over in the corner of the field, and it was lovely. And I thought, I hadn't thought of perhaps outside of the current handler, who else may have been involved in that dog's life. So thank you for raising that. And the other thing is that the Gloucestershire Constabulary told us recently as well that the majority of their sniffer dogs, their search dogs, come from rescue centres, so RSPCA and what have you.
Yeah.
And so even if people aren't supporting NFRSA directly, if they're supporting their local RSPCA centre, then somewhere along the line that dog may well have needed food and accommodation through that charity as well, before they went on to have their second shot at life, so to speak.
The bond between a handler and their dog is it's extraordinary to see. The guys that our local police dog handlers, they train up here in the park, and I go up and watch them, and it's just a joy to watch, to see how they are absolutely, especially the German Shepherds and the Malinois, they're absolutely fixated on their owner, and watching their every move, waiting for the next command. But this is not something that's done in a negative way. Their training is so positive that they just literally adore them. There is no way to describe it. There's a firearms dog in Gloucestershire. She's called Lola, and she's absolutely mental. I don't go anywhere near her. She's a beautiful Malinois, but she is absolutely fixated on her owner. She's an ex-army dog, and apparently she's quote unquote calmed down. Ha ha. But she's an extraordinary dog, and her strength, you know, when she goes into attack, you know, she'll take a grown man off his feet. But she absolutely is devoted to her owner. And I said to her handler, I said, what's going to happen to Lola when she retires? And he said, oh, she'll stay at home. Well, she'll stay at home with us. I said, the missus is delighted. I was like, wow, yours is going to be the safest street in Gloucestershire.
Well, if you think about that in just itself, right? If you got a dog that does a job like that, and then you come to this point where you have to decide whether to keep it or not, you wouldn't want that dog going into the wrong hands.
That's a very good point, Jo. And when they rehome police dogs, they go to people who are very clued up about the work that they've done, very clued up about what they are capable of doing. They will quite often go to somewhere with a lot of land. I know of a police dog who went to a farm and had the absolute life of variety. In fact, it was lovely retired police dog Kenny, who very sadly was our first grant, and it was an unhappy ending. Kenny went to the vet, and it turned out that he had a burst tumour on his lung and had to be put to sleep. But you know, even when they went to the vets to go and do that final act, he walked over to them, tail wagging and happy to see them. But he was on a farm and he had absolutely the best life, but they were absolutely devastated when he died, and they came to us for help, and we paid for his last vet bill and contributed to his cremation. And we were, you know, really privileged to do that. And we were sad that our first grant was, and you know, not a happy ending, but just it's such a lovely thing to be there for the owners and for the handlers, because you know, it is a devastating time when you lose a dog, and it's a very frightening time when you have a sick dog. And you know, we had RPD Keeler, a retired dog from Kent, and she had to have emergency surgery at night because she had a stomach torsion. All your ladies will know exactly what that is and how serious it is. And in a German Shepherd, it's really life-threatening. And she had to rush her to hospital, and the vet said, you know, this is going to be expensive. She said, I don't care what it costs. I'll remortgage my house if I have to. This just shows the bond. And she came to us, and we phoned up the vet and said, you know, £6,000 is rather a lot of money. We're a charity. Would you consider reducing it? And they very kindly did. They took 20% off, but we paid that entire bill, and we were absolutely thrilled to do it. And Sam, who's Keeler's owner, but also was her handler, was just incredibly grateful. And she sent us this lovely video afterwards, didn't she? Yeah. Of Keeler, and to say thank you. And she just said, I will now do anything for you guys. You saved my dog. You know, you've helped me save my dog. And, you know, it was just really moving. And
so we'll talk a little bit about how our members can help the charity in a moment. But before we go along, the main goals of the organisation obviously is to provide this support for people who've got these retired service dogs and they need help with veterinary care, which is always incredibly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Is it part of the work to maybe start looking at strategically changing the government's plans with these animals? You know, is there a plan to maybe say, well, look, maybe you should continue their care?
Jo, that is an excellent question, and I'm really glad you asked me it. So, because of our society today, the reason that these dogs are not supported in their retirement is because the funding is just simply not there. Police crime commissioners have a budget, and they also have to answer to their taxpayers and their voters. And unfortunately, in these austere times, it is very difficult for a police crime commissioner to justify a £6,000 bill on an animal that is no longer serving its community. As far as changing legislation is concerned, it would take years, and it would have to be enshrined in law. We've looked into this, and we have realised that not only would it take years, it would be very easy to undo. So with these wonderful retired police dog charities who have been there for years, ourselves, we've been around for, gosh, well, we're 7 months old now, so we're very old. We could go to Parliament, we could campaign to have the rules changed. We could campaign to say to government, will you look after these retired dogs? And they could say, absolutely, let's look after these retired dogs. We will now advise that all retired dogs should be taken care of. So we all go home, we hang up our boots, all the local retired police dog charities close down, and we say, yay, our job here is done. And we send all the rest of our money to, I don't know, the Dogs Trust or something. Next government comes in, oh, sorry, no, can't afford that. We're taking it away. And all of a sudden, we would be right back at square one. So yes, we would love to get it. It would have to be enshrined in law. And to get that changed would literally probably take anything up to 10 years. And when you're talking about consecutive governments, you're right back at square one again. So should Labour win next time, or should another government win, you go to them, you talk, oh yeah, no, really good idea. Yeah, no, we really like that. Yeah, let's work on that. 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, Conservatives get back in, Green Party get in, whoever gets in. Oh, no, we're sorry. No, we can't do that. We can't possibly afford it. So it's just better to be there. Just get on with the job, take care of our wonderful retired dogs, and leave the government to do their government thing.
Whatever that is.
I worked for a very short while, a couple of years, for local council, and I totally agree with you, because we had meetings to discuss meetings, and
Correct.
I'm very much a person of action, and
Yeah.
it literally drove me mad. So I think you're absolutely right. Just get on with the action, make sure that we've got the funds available, that we don't need them to step in.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And it's, you know, and I think also, you know, it's, and also that sort of thing is time consuming. You know, I mean, I always admire what David Wardell did with Finn, because he changed Finn, he got Finn's law through. I will always admire him for that, because Finn's law basically changed legislation and enshrined in law that police dogs are no longer treated as pieces of property. They are treated as a police officer. So if you stick a knife in a police dog, you may as well stuck it in the police officer. And I think that's incredibly important what he did there.
Fantastic. I totally agree with you on that one. As you're talking about it, I get goosebumps, because I'm sure anybody listening to this will agree. Even in the most frustrating days of training our working dogs, we still adore them. They are our world. We treat them, and very much so now, as generations go past, the dog has become more a part of the family. You know, they don't all live in kennels, 100 kennels strong. They live in the house, they have names, they are very much part of us. So anything happening to them is hysterically worrying for us. And then the people with the police dogs, they, like you said, they've got exactly the same feelings towards their dogs.
Yeah.
With regards to the work that you do, you're a very young charity, 7 months. What is your sort of goals like going forward? How much money do you want to make? Do you have things that are important that you'd like our members to know about?
Well, I mean, we've got obviously, I mean, I'm a great blue sky thinker, and you know, when I say I've had an idea, people usually start to climb under pieces of furniture to get away from me. Tracy's nodding violently. It's like, oh, I've had an idea. They're like, oh no, she's had an idea.
Get my pen out.
But one of my dreams is, because there's one thing at the moment that none of the charities do, and I was talking last night to our grants panel, which has 2 fantastic vets on. We've got 2 local vets who look at every grant application and really scrutinise them. They're amazing. They're completely committed to us. And they, you know, and one of the things at the moment, some constabularies do it, but not very many. But none of these retired dogs have their inoculations paid for, their annual boosters. And we all know how incredibly important those are. My lovely, lovely blue sky thinking dream is to be able to start off a fund, and I want to call it Keela's Fund, because she was our first big our first big grant. And what I'd love to do is to raise enough money so that we can pay for every single retired service dog in this country and horse to have their inoculations. That's a serious amount of money. There's probably about, I would say, I'm going to say again, slight blue sky calculations, but I'd say there's probably about 3,500 retired dogs in the country. And what I'd love to do is to be able to go to the manufacturer of the inoculations and say, will you give it to us as cost? And then what we can do is we can then arrange for the local retired police dog charities to administer their area, because again, we don't want to encroach and we don't want to go in and start taking over. So we would say, there's the money, do it. And then we cover all the other retired police, fire, prison and border force dogs as well for their inoculations. And that would just be an amazing thing to be able to do. And we would have a separate fund for that. What your ladies can do is to go out there and fundraise, have a coffee morning, go on a lovely sponsored walk with all your mates, bike from John O'Groats to Land's End, which is what I'm going to do next year.
Who
Kidding.
would be crazy enough to do that?
I know. That's one of my other crazy ideas. Okay, fine. It's a Porsche electric bike, so sue me. I'm going to be 58. But I'm biking from John O'Groats to Land's End next year, which will be huge fun and hopefully raise awareness and maybe raise a few pennies as well. But yes, go out there and have a fundraiser, have a cake sale. I don't know, don't send Christmas cards this year and instead send us the money, which is what a couple of people have done. We've got our website, Joe, it's very, very easy. It's NFRSA.org.uk. So that's NFRSA.org.uk. Have a look on there. There's a fundraising page, gives loads of ideas that you can go off and do something fun. If anybody's going to hurl themselves out of an aeroplane, please don't forget to put on a parachute. Any of those sort of lovely fundraising ideas that people do, we would be so, so grateful. We've got a fundraising page, and obviously, we'll then put mad photographs of all what the ladies have been up to. And I mean, I don't know, there's so many things that you can do. I mean, have a quiz night, go to the pub and have a quiz night, or anything at all, but fundraise for us. That's what I would love your ladies to do, and I'd be so grateful. But also Tracey will be grateful too. But it's more importantly, the dogs will be grateful, and that's who we're helping. It's not about us, it's about the dogs and the horses.
We will definitely, after this podcast, I'm sure, Tracey, I'm going to rope you in here live on the podcast, but we will look at something that we can do as an organisation, and we'll promote that and find something. We did something a couple of years ago where we did like a charity walk, but each person did it in their own area, and we had like a funding for Spaniel Aid. I'm sure we can do something similar for yourselves, and we'd love to do it. I know the ladies listening to this, or even this gentleman who listens to this as well, all over the world, all across the UK, that we'll put on something and we'll put it up publicly so everybody can get involved. And Tracey, you don't mind me making you in charge of that, do you?
No, of course not. I've got to learn to say no. And as I mentioned on the previous podcast, as we grow as well and we attend more events, because all of us are here in Gloucestershire, the majority of us, what we will be looking for in the future, in fact we're already starting the process now, is to look for regional volunteers. So Crufts isn't too far away, and nor is it hugely, it is not too far away from us. Logistically, it's only, Birmingham's about an hour and 20 minutes or something. But there are events in Norfolk, Scotland, Kent,
Wiltshire.
That's not too far for us.
Yeah, no, but it's still. Any of your working dog ladies in Wiltshire, we're having a lovely open garden party at the Fonthill Estate on June the 11th. So we'd love help there. But but yes, it is. It's regional help. But also the other thing is, Joe, would be absolutely wonderful, is if anybody feels impassioned enough, like we do, about our wonderful retired service dogs, we do want to start off some satellite committees, fundraising committees. So if any of your lovely ladies would like to get together with a group of their, working dog mates, and start a fundraising committee in an area, so Wiltshire or Scotland or Cumbria or any of the places. Wales, definitely Wales.
Definitely Wales.
We would be really grateful, because it means that they're working within their communities. And not only that, they're spreading the word, and that would be just absolutely wonderful.
And they'll be part of our family then.
They'll be part of our family. But also maybe just look and see if there's a local retired police dog charity in your area, and then, you know, just do it for the prison, fire and border force. We have to be very sensitive about those guys.
What I'll do is, in the show notes, we'll get a list of you guys after this, is I'll put a list of the charities you're already aware of.
On our website, Jo, there is actually a list of, you can go to our website, because we've got a link that says our colleagues, and it's got a map of England, and it's got all the local retired police dog charities on there.
Brilliant, fantastic. We'll definitely link to that then. That's absolutely fantastic. Just curiosity, because we're talking about like loads and loads of really good stuff that you guys are doing. But what's been your biggest challenge so far in running the NFRSA?
Gosh, that's a really good question. What's been our challenge?
For me personally, it's been a really steep learning curve. You know,
it has been a learning curve. I mean, you know, when I had this idea 6 years ago, you know, I thought, start off a charity, but you know, it's a big job. I mean, we've got charitable status now, which is wonderful. And one of our colleagues, our management committee, Jane Muller, worked extraordinarily hard on that, because I'm no good at paperwork. I sort of tend to fall asleep and think it's all rather dull. And so Jane has been absolutely brilliant in doing the administration of that. But I think the biggest challenge for us so far, I mean, we're incredibly lucky, Jo, because everybody that we have spoken to has said, why hasn't this been done before? And what a wonderful thing, you know, because it's raising money for not just animals, but these extraordinary animals who have given so much to their communities in so many different ways. It's not just the police, it's the fire seeking out arson. Fire dogs save us thousands and thousands of pounds every year, because when you have a fire, if the arson has been suspected, you can send in a fire dog, and within minutes it will find the source of the fire. Now, that could take days or weeks with us humans, because you'd have to take samples from here, samples from there, samples from there, send them off to the lab, get them back again. But fire dogs go, no, started here. And that's, I mean, that's tens of thousands of pounds and endless man hours saved. And for prison dogs, I mean, prison dogs, I went down to HMP Rochester a couple of weeks ago, and it's not just the security in the prison, it's not just the tornado dogs, which are in our calendar, by the way. So if anybody wants to buy a calendar, they can do. Oh yes, I'd love all your ladies to buy things in our shop. We have some very nice candles we've just introduced. I went down to HMP Rochester a couple of weeks ago, and the sniffer dogs do this extraordinary thing, is that they find the drugs. They find mobile phones half the size of a box of matches. They find explosive components. They find cash. They find there's a drug in prison called spice, and it's horrible stuff. And how they get it into prisons is that they spray it onto an A4 sheet of paper. They then write, dear Fred, hope you're having a nice time in prison. We miss you. Lots of love, Mum. Put it into an envelope and send it into the prison. And that A4 sheet of paper in prison is worth £1,000, because they all want to have this spice, because it just gets them through the day. And so what they do is I watched this wonderful spaniel, and they put the mail in buckets. So one letter, and the spaniel goes and sniffs every single one, and they will find the drugs. And I actually watched as they found a seemingly innocuous letter, and it was covered in spice.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because I'm always amazed. I interviewed a lady the other day for, her dog is a cadaver dog, and it can find, this is a little bit gory, but it can find bodies underwater. And I was like, how on earth can it even know it's there? But their ability to do these things, to be able to indicate on things that we cannot see, cannot know about,
Mm.
we owe them a huge debt. But if you think about even our whole history of working with dogs, our
Mm.
dogs going back to a long, long time ago when man realised a dog would hunt with it, they've served us. They've always served us.
Yes, they have.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the border force, again, a very small section, but the things that they find are, I mean, the things that they stop getting into our shores, which, in the end, keep you and I and all the ladies in the working dog group safe. And drugs and cash and explosives, firearms, even human trafficking. I mean, they do extraordinary work. It is fascinating. I mean, obviously, you can tell that we're both quite passionate about it, but it really is fascinating. And the service that they do to us as a community, it might not directly be me, it might not directly be you or Tracey, but just in the bigger scheme of things, they just keep us safe. And our mantra is to protect our protectors. They have protected us throughout their working lives. I absolutely believe, Tracey, absolutely everybody on our committee and our trustees and all of our volunteers, and I'm sure your ladies will too, but I absolutely passionately believe that they have looked after us all their working lives, and it is just our duty to make sure that their retirement and their twilight years are lived out in comfort, happiness, and above all, good health.
I think that's really important because, like any charity, the difficult thing about being part of any charity is raising people's awareness, particularly people who are yet to be touched by that illness, or like if it's a cancer charity or Alzheimer's or anything like that. The main people who support those charities are people who have been affected by that. And I think a lot of our work at the moment, as you said, we're only 7 months old, is still very much about these sort of things, getting the message out there that you can actually then see people stepping back and going, God, I had no idea. And now that I'm thinking about that, I wonder how many times I've stepped on a plane and I have reached my destination thanks to a sniffer dog at the airport. Yeah. That checked that all the luggage that's in the cargo of my plane before I go and sun myself and drink pina coladas. I just remember that feeling for a moment. Yeah. Is saying, I'm safe, and probably a massive part of that will have been down to a dog.
Yes.
And we don't stop and think about it.
Yes.
Because we're not, unless it's right there in our faces. And so as a new charity, of course, we need to raise huge amounts of money. But at these early stages as well, it's very much about raising people's awareness so that they start to open their thinking, going, God, I bet my life has been affected positively by, a sniffer dog or a police dog in some way.
Yeah, no, it is. And their reach is, is absolutely huge. And I mean, I've several times people have said to me, prison dogs, is that a thing? Yeah. Yes, it is. There's over 900 of them serving in this country, but they're just quietly getting on with keeping us safe, and that's in a roundabout way. And say the fire dogs, they're keeping us safe. The police dogs, police horses, keeping us safe. Border force dog, keeping us safe. So we should also be keeping them safe. And and I don't get cross about the fact. People sort of get very, they should be looked, and they get very indignant about them not being looked after in their retirement. I absolutely get that these budgets for PCCs are very difficult, and for chief fire officers and governors of prisons and our border force, our home office. I absolutely get that in these austere times, budgets are very difficult to manage. And and I just think the work that we're doing is wonderful, and people are being so kind and enthusiastic, and that sort of drives our passion, doesn't it? Because we know that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's just lovely to be able to talk to you and to be able to share with you and with your lovely listeners that this there really is a need, and we're just encouraging everybody to get involved. And our website's there, so please contact us. And there's a lovely shop with some gorgeous candles on there. I'm having to fight not to burn them myself, but
stop with the candles.
Stop with the candle. Jack, well, now funny, you love a story about that. I mean, I probably shouldn't be boasting about them because I helped design them, but we have some lovely ambassadors And two of them are Lawrence and Jackie Llewellyn Bowen, lovely Lawrence, who we all know. And Jackie makes gorgeous candles. And so she said, why don't we design some candles for the NFRSA? And I went, oh, that's a good idea. Can I help? So I went over to her house and we had a lovely morning sniffing oils. And so that sounds like we're doing drugs, doesn't it? We had a lovely morning sniffing oils, and we've absolutely uniquely and hand designed 2 candles, and they are really lovely. I'm very happy with them. So yes, you can get online and order some of those.
So once this podcast goes out, you'll see a visible spike in the candles.
Yes. Better tell Jackie, she better make some more.
Well, thank you very much for spending your time this morning going through this with us. I think the work you do is critical. You are taking what is unseen service, making it visible to us all, and helping us to see that there are simple ways, simple things that we can do that can ensure these dogs who served us all their lives in the shadows are looked after once they need it from us. If people want to get involved, obviously they've got the website, they can buy things from the shop, they can get involved as ambassadors, look at regional committees. There really is loads of ways our listeners can get really grassroots level involved with this charity, isn't there?
There is. I mean, there, as you say, visit the website, just have a really good look around the website. There's a video on YouTube. If you just search NFRSA on YouTube, it's a 17-minute video. So pour a large glass of wine and sit back and watch it, and I dare you not to cry. And there's a very handsome prison officer on there called Mark. He's actually in our calendar. He's our March pin-up and our September pin-up. We loved him so much, he appears in our calendar twice. But sorry, it's just so naughty, isn't it? Oh well, okay. And so if your ladies visit the website, go to the shop and buy stuff. We've got some gorgeous beanies, we've got hoodies, we've got fleeces, so really useful stuff. Dog towels, so really important stuff for when you for all your ladies who run dogs and work with dogs. And support us, but also have an event. You know, they can raise some money, and you know. But the other thing is that you know we've got loads of leaflets. So if anybody wants any leaflets that they can put in a shop, and if anybody's got any dog business or any business at all, and they'd like some leaflets, do send us an email, info@nfrsa.org.uk. Loads of ways you can help, and we would absolutely adore you all to get involved and be very, very grateful.
I'm sure all our listeners will want to get involved. It's something that's become very dear to my heart already through you guys talking to me about it. I think it's something we can all do that genuinely makes a lovely, lovely difference. Like I said, thank you very much for talking to us. We will definitely be doing things with you in the future. If you've been listening and you have been touched by the conversations we've had, please go visit the website and start your journey with this charity from there. I hope you've all enjoyed listening to LWDG Pod Dog this week, and we wish you all a fantastic week and hope to see you all next Friday. Thank you for listening to LWDG Pod Dog with me, Jo Parrott. Now, we all know training a dog takes time, energy and patience, but our lives can be really, really busy. Don't worry, the LWDG has got you covered. Join us for our free planning workshop where we'll show you how to use short 10-minute training sessions each day to fast forward your dog's education. Our experts have years of experience in training dogs and will help you get started on the right foot. Register now and start making progress with your furry friend today. Go to our Facebook page, the Ladies Working Dog Group, and click on the pinned post, or visit www.thelwdg.com.